the reason that I got so involved with Janet Reno is she testified before Congress about Waco that they did everything not to push David Koresh over the edge. Listen, no one got more information than me on that case, Alex. And listen to this. David Koresh went jogging every morning and went for lunch and went for breakfast in the local town. They could have arrested him in town and there would have been no problem. They wanted that siege. They wanted that siege to try and change the IRS law of this exemptions for these church-related activities. And it blew up in her face. But when she testified to Congress and said we didn't want to pressure him and push him over the edge, I wasn't on that committee or I'd asked her this question. Then, my God, why did you have strobe lights on that building all night and play the recordings of dying rabbits at the screaming decibel level so high it was heard in villages 5 miles away if you didn't want to push anybody over the edge? She lied. But the thing that bothered me is we had a general in the Red Chinese Army, Alex, that gave $10 million to the Clinton campaign, and she never investigated it. She said it wasn't worthy of an investigation. Now, my God, we have China right now that is controlling much of the money supply in America. They're controlling the commerce and trade of America. You have Israel that's controlling the national and international policies of America. Where the hell did the American people come in, and why isn't anybody saying it?
Well, this is an incredible interview with James Traficant, and I know you're on the road right now traveling, and if you can't do it, it's fine. We're going to break here in about 5 minutes for 1 minute. Can we have an additional 5 minutes with you?
I'll be honored, and let me tell you something. I am concerned about you, but you're making one hell of an impact.
Well, I'm concerned about you and everybody else that has courage, and God bless you. Again, Jim Traficant is our guest. And going back to Waco briefly, I remember the FLIR footage of the Bradley fighting vehicles with the troops firing their assault rifles. And it came out that Delta Force was there. It was in Time magazine that Israeli troops, of all people, and British troops were there. As a congressman who was there during those investigations, what's your intel on that?
It was a joke the way the mainstream media actually turned it around, where many Americans at their dinner table were saying they got just what they deserved down there in Texas. My God, Alex, there were 17 kids incinerated, children incinerated in that building. I had seen films of it where many of those guns and many of those heavy artillery was aimed right at the exit points where no one was coming out of there. Look, Janet Reno and the Justice Department should have gone to prison over that. And another one that was very bad. Now, so you're not a white supremacist and you're not a racist. I know that. Neither am I. But this fellow, Randy Weaver, out there in Idaho, they shot his wife holding their infant child right between the eyes, a marksman. Killed a dog and killed his 14-year-old boy. I made a speech every week until they settled, and he ended up settling for about $5 million with the government. But they did that, and they entangled that man because he was supposedly a white supremacist and was a political target of the United States government. Look, I'm not into any white supremacists, black power business. I'm for a straight and honest American society. But regardless of what your politics are, I don't think that you should be singled out.
Well, I know Weaver. He was former Special Forces. They wanted him to be an informant against the Aryan nations who he'd only visited once. He was, quote, separating himself from society. None of that was even true. And when he wouldn't go be an informant for them, they went and did what they did.
Yeah, it was a shame. What they did is they came to him and trapped him to saw off 2 barrels off shotguns. He said, why don't you do it? They said, well, we don't want to get into that. We don't know what we're doing. You know what you're doing. And they entrapped the guy. But the way they come in with a SWAT team and the way they destroyed that family. But see, this is what America's not seeing. They're not seeing the other side of the one-eyed jack. Let me tell you something, Alex. In that 7.5 years in prison, I'm probably more knowledgeable than anyone that ever served in Congress. That isn't self-serving, because I've seen the other side of this thing. And see, I know what you're talking about. You're very unpopular in the nation's capital. But your popularity is growing because people know you're telling the truth, and you're touching subjects that people are afraid to even comment on. This is what bothers me. Do we have freedom of speech in America?
Well, do we have miser men? I mean, I'm not looking for trouble, but I can't control myself. When I see corruption and people being oppressed, I've got to stand up against it, and I, quite frankly, don't give a damn if they kill me. I don't want that to happen, but I'm committed.
Well, let me tell you something. The truth of the matter is there are a lot of Americans like you, and they don't have the microphone, and they respect the hell out of you for it. And why you have a tremendous responsibility. You have a tremendous responsibility with the pressure that you're going to be getting. And after having an interview with Jim Traficant, my God, they're going to have their antenna up completely. But what I'm saying are things that I know, that I've investigated myself. And when I brought a man home off a death row for mass murder, and Israel called me at my hotel in Jerusalem and said, he'll be in Tel Aviv tomorrow night, Congressman, take him home. That tells you that I got the right information.
And the government knew it, and then you're demonized, and they set you up and put you in prison. We're going to come back. I'm sorry to the callers. It's just that all the info he keeps bringing out, I want to get every minute we can, because he was in the middle of all of this in Congress for so long. But we'll see about going to your calls. Regardless, I'll get to him when we come back after the congressman's left us in about 8 minutes. We'll be back in 70 seconds. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live. Jim Traficant, final segment with him. We have talked about so many issues, but going back to blackmail in Congress, they can selectively either falsely charge somebody or use a crooked toenail to put them in prison. And then meanwhile, I've been talking for years about Goldman Sachs openly robbing everyone. And the people we've talked to, the experts here, they believe that these Justice Department criminal research, criminal investigation is just a big cover-up, and that the civil indictment is just a big cover-up because Goldman Sachs is Obama's biggest contributor. Where do you see this going, Congressman?
Well, I don't see anything happening to anybody. I think there's a big network of people that surround our government. They control our government. And I think we have to start looking again at foreign entanglements like First President Washington warned us of. And back then it was Britain, but now, believe me, we have Israel that's very powerful, and they're very powerful on Wall Street. The thing that bothers me is much of our government has been coming from Goldman Sachs. They've been sending their people into our decision-making process. And I think it's time. Audit the Fed isn't enough. We got to end the Fed. Coin money, as the Constitution says, and we can promulgate a plan to do that. I think it's time to throw many of these departments of government out. Department of Energy was supposed to take our dependence off of foreign oil. Hell, we have more dependency now than we had back then. Department of Education, I think it's time for the states to handle that and the local school boards to make salient decisions. And I think there's so many things. But, Alex, I'm saying this on your show. If we do not, in fact, abolish the IRS and repeal the income tax and let the American people get their entire pay with no withholding, no tax on savings, no corporate tax, no capital gains tax, no inheritance and death taxes, no more Social Security, no more Medicare tax, no more audits, no more paperwork, no more receipts, no more accountants, no more attorneys. And that 25% tax will cover these problems. And second of all, as Harvard study said, when we take the burdensome compliance off this communist progressive income tax, that prices will drop so significantly that we will have hardly no increase in prices we have now. And finally, for those under the ladder, they take their receipts into the government, and the government would give them, as they have now, assistance programs, but that would be coupled with work. And finally, all this underground narcotic business, they'd pay taxes. And they're now on SSI, and their wives are in public housing, by the way. Second of all these people come to visit Broadway in Las Vegas, Germany, Japan, all over the world, Canada. They would pay into our tax scheme. And we can turn the people are not free, and we will not be free until we take the yoke of the income tax off the American people. We've got to reward work and personal industry. That's my statement.
All right, Congressman, we are out of time, but very gracious to give us this much time. People need to get involved with your campaign. You're officially filing next week. We're going to give them an address if people want to support you financially in that here in just a moment. But I would just add, Kennedy cut the income tax by 50%, and government tax receipts doubled. The government knows when they cut taxes, they get more money because the economy speeds up. They want to control the economy, and that's why they're only expanding government. We've got to at least just stop the growth of it, or it's over, as you said. Give us your address so people can support you.
429 North Main Street, Poland. Just like the country, Poland, Ohio, 44514.
One more time.
429 North Main Street, Poland, Ohio, 44514.
Well, resistance is victory, and by you running, you're going to be able to be on the news, and you're going to be able to bring real issues to the table. Whether you win, lose, or draw, it's a victory that you're running, and I'm glad you're doing it. You've got huge support. The news reports thousands of people coming to your rallies, hundreds and hundreds of people, even in the small towns. So you've got a big support base out there, and we appreciate what you're doing, Congressman Jim Traficant. All the demonization, all the lies you've gone through, but you're on the outside now, exposing this tyranny. And I look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
About you, and God bless you. Keep up your good work, Alec.
We'll try, sir. And as you said last time, no need to be beamed out. There is intelligent life in America, just not in Washington. Thank you so much, sir. We'll talk to you again soon. We'll be right back with your phone calls, a ton of news, and Wayne Madsen coming up.